Homesteading, page 110. Canning, a method of preserving food that employs heat processing in airtight, vacuum-sealed containers so that food can be safely stored at normal home temperatures. Canning salt, also called pickling salt. It is regular table salt without the anti-caking or iodine additives. Citric acid, a form of acid that can be added to canned foods. It increases the acidity of low acid foods and may improve their flavor. Cold pack, canning procedure in which jars are filled with raw food. Raw pack is the preferred term for describing this practice. Cold pack is often used incorrectly to refer to foods that are open, kettle, canned, or jars that are heat processed in boiling water. Enzymes, proteins in food that accelerate many flavor, color, texture, and nutritional changes, especially when food is cut, sliced, crushed, bruised, or exposed to air. Proper blanching or hot packing practices destroy enzymes and improve food quality. Exhausting, removing air from within and around food and from jars and canners. Exhausting or venting of pressure canners is necessary to prevent botulism in low-acid canned foods. Headspace, the unfilled space above food or liquid in jars that allows for food expansion as jars are heated and for forming vacuums as jars cool. Heat processing, treatment of jars with sufficient heat to enable storing food at normal home temperatures. Hermetic seal, an absolutely airtight container seal that prevents re-entry of air or microorganisms into packaged foods. Hot pack, heating of raw food in boiling water or steam and filling it hot into jars. Low acid foods, foods that contain very little acid and have a pH above 4.6. The acidity in these foods is insufficient to prevent the growth of botulism bacteria. Vegetables, some varieties of tomatoes, figs, all meats, fish, seafood, and some dairy products are low acid foods. To control all risks of botulism, jars of these foods must be either heat processed in a pressure canner or acidified to a pH of 4.6 or lower before being processed in boiling water. Microorganisms, independent organisms of microscopic size, including bacteria, yeast, and mold. In a suitable environment, they grow rapidly and may divide or reproduce every 10 to 30 minutes. Therefore, they reach high populations very quickly. Microorganisms are sometimes intentionally added to ferment foods, make antibiotics, and for other reasons. Undesirable microorganisms cause disease and food spoilage. Mold, a fungus-type microorganism whose growth on food is usually visible and colorful. Molds may grow on many foods, including acid foods like jams and jellies and canned fruits. Recommended heat processing and sealing practices prevent their growth on these foods. mycotoxins or mycotoxins. Toxins produced by the growth of some molds on food. Open kettle canning. A non-recommended canning method. Food is heat processed in a covered kettle filled while hot into sterile jars and then sealed. Foods canned this way have low vacuums or too much air, which permits rapid loss of quality in foods. Also, these foods often spoil because they become recontaminated while the jars are being filled. Pasteurization, heating food to temperatures high enough to destroy disease-causing microorganisms. pH, a measure of acidity or alkalinity. Values range from 0 to 14. A food is neutral while its pH is 7.0. Lower values are increasingly more acidic. Higher values are increasingly more alkaline. PSIG, pounds per square inch of pressure as measured by a gauge. Pressure canner, a specifically designed metal kettle with a lockable lid used for heat processing low acid food. These canners have jar racks, one or more safety devices, systems for exhausting air, and a way to measure or control pressure. Canners with 20 to 21 quart capacity are common. The minimum size of canner that should be used has a 16 quart capacity and can hold 7 1-quart jars. Use of pressure saucepans with a capacity of less than 16 quarts is not recommended. Raw pack, the practice of filling jars with raw, unheated food. Acceptable for canning low acid foods, but allows more rapidly quality losses in acid foods that are heat processed in boiling water, also called cold pack. Style of pack, form of canned food such as whole, sliced, piece, juice, or sauce. The term may also be used to specify whether food is filled raw or hot into jars. Vacuum, a state of negative pressure that reflects how thoroughly air is removed from within a jar of processed food. The higher the vacuum, the less air left in the jar. Proper canning practices. Growth of bacterium Clostridium botulinum in canned food may cause botulism, a deadly form of food poisoning.